We're continuing our discussion of the Zadroga legislation with Sean Riordan, a disabilities and workers' compensation attorney and the counsel to the Feel Good Foundation, person extremely knowledgeable in the area of Zadroga and 9/11. Sean, let's continue. On the question of the illnesses, is there a list or someplace that an individual can refer to see whether their condition that they're experiencing, in fact, is included?
Sure. Well, twofold, really. Those are under the regulations that are considered presumptive disabilities. Those are disabilities that are being treated under the medical monitoring program. And they're found, they're in the Zadroga bill. You can find them on the NIOSH website, the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health. And frankly, the special master is going to put forth a website as well. And there's going to be a list of the presumptive illnesses. But right now, the easiest way to look at them is look at the Zadroga bill, look at NIOSH, and there is a list of those exact illnesses that are covered.
That brings us to a very critical issue, which of course is someone was exposed, whether they were there for a few days or for months, as many workers were, and then they subsequently contracted some kind of a malignancy, a cancer. What is the position, as you understand it, with regard to malignancies and whether they are covered under Zadroga?
Right now, unfortunately, we do not believe that they're going to be covered. It is our expectation that they will be added. But the way that the actual regulations read is only those illnesses that are covered under the medical monitoring and treatment program will be considered for compensation as presumptive illnesses under the Victims' Compensation Fund. Right now, NIOSH and the federal government does not provide treatment for malignancies or any types of cancers. We are hopeful that with recent studies and forthcoming studies that they will be added by NIOSH, in which case NIOSH will, or I should say the Victims' Compensation Fund will adopt NIOSH's finding, and then they will be covered.
What would you maybe underscore as the most likely possible cancers that would be included?
Well, certainly blood cancers. We have seen a major influx of blood cancers. I don't think that really anybody can dispute that at this point. Digestive tract cancers, probably the second. Thyroid cancer, in a really what's generally considered a female cancer, we've seen an influx in the male population of ground zero workers. But those are probably the three.
What about lung cancer?
Oh, certainly. But yes, absolutely, lung cancer, pulmonary fibrosis, anything of the lungs, the pulmonary tract, no doubt about it. The cancers, we are hopeful, will be added sometime very, very soon.
Now, there are some others that are less serious than cancers, but have a respiratory, sinus, and some others. Why don't you touch on those, because they make up, as I understand, the physical illnesses, which the special masters indicated those are the ones that she would be making an award on.
No doubt about it. What we've seen is sinuses, as far as sinusitis, rhinitis, rhinosinusitis, GERD, very, very high influx of GERD in the first responder community and the community 9/11 of the residencies. Barrett's esophagus is probably another major illness. And people think, well, listen, I've suffered from GERD. There wasn't a first responder, but a lot of these guys are really incapacitated. It's a bit more severe than what I think everybody thinks is the common illnesses such as sinusitis and GERD.
I've seen that other in that list also of the workers, the World Trade Center cough, which is, I guess, a dry hacking cough that a number of people have experienced.
Lungs again, okay, reactive airway dysfunction syndrome, chronic obstructive pulmonary disorder. Anything really in the lungs is going to be a covered impairment at this point. And what they've kind of termed over the 10 years now is the World Trade Center cough. I mean, the World Trade Center cough is clearly, and has been from day one, an established World Trade Center symptom.
Let's call those physical illnesses, physical injuries that someone has experienced. There is another whole category called psychological or emotional conditions which people have experienced. Let's touch on what they are, and let's make the distinction, because there is a major distinction between those as a special master sees them.
There is a major distinction. The studies have shown post-traumatic stress disorder is a major illness suffered by 9/11 first responders and the community at large around Ground Zero. Major depressive disorder is probably the second follow-up to a major concern within the 9/11 community. Those are not currently covered, like the physical illnesses. The special master has made the distinction. Really, I'd even go as far as to say that Congress made the distinction. In the Zadroga Act itself, it calls for physical harm, and that has been interpreted by the special master as a physical injury as opposed to post-traumatic stress disorder and major depressive disorder.
On the issue of an injury, a physical injury, the special master was rather specific in terms of how she lays out what the criteria of evaluation is and what someone making that kind of a claim is. Maybe we should touch on those. I guess it has to be a covered condition or one of them on the list, as you said. But what are some of the other conditions there as it relates to reasonable treatment within a reasonable period of time of diagnosis and medical records and things of that nature?
Essentially, as far as contemporaneous treatment, I mean, that's really what she's looking for. That there was a diagnosis made, you knew it was or could possibly be 9/11 related, and you followed up and had some treatment with a medical physician. That physician, obviously, when you went to go see them, would create a medical record establishing the type of symptoms that you had and what the official diagnosis was. We as attorneys use that as evidence every single day, and it's not going to be any different here with the Victims' Compensation Fund. The special master wants the medical documentation to establish your claim. And so the medical documentation, in addition to proof that you were down there, that's going to be really close the door on our causal relationship issues and establishing that your illnesses are 9/11 related.
What would you generally consider or give some guidance with regard to the contemporaneous between someone that might have been diagnosed or felt they had a condition and then they went for some medical treatment on it? What constitutes a reasonable time, I guess, is the question.
I think that's open for interpretation at this point, John, but I mean, what I would say is, listen, a lot of things such as sinusitis, GERD, you're not going to rush to the doctor necessarily, and you're not going to necessarily draw the dots yourself and say that this is 9/11 related. However, when it becomes a chronic problem, something that you're telling the special master that this has been a chronic problem since such and such a date, we want to see medical records establishing that you've been following up with your doctor since that point where it became that chronic problem for you and became debilitating.
Just to give a sense of timing here as the process moves forward, let's assume we're more or less sitting here kind of in the early part of July. And what can we expect as we go forward with regard to the flow of Zadroga claims? What should people be thinking about doing now? And then ultimately winding up with something that the special master has referred to as an eligibility form. Sure. Where do you see the timing on that?
Well, right now, sitting here in July, we have really just been issued 2 weeks ago these regulations. There's a 45-day waiting period or comment period for the public to tell the special master what they think about the regulations. I think that brings us to approximately August 5th. Once that occurs and the rules and regulations are adopted, well, then they'll go into effect. Then I think that the special master has said publicly that we're trying to get the eligibility form out by September 11th. That would allow us some time, really, and I think the goal here is to have the program up and running, applications filed on October 1st. Okay. So if we can get the ball rolling by the Department of Justice by October 1st, get some of our applicants in, I think that's the time frame that most people can expect.
Let's take a quick break, and in segment 3 we're going to talk about what the timing of the review of the application and the awards and the payment schedule. We'll continue that in just a moment.